What's up, writers? Today, I want to really quickly just go over some more things having to do with evidence. I know, we've talked about it a lot. I just am seeing so many huge, gigantic quotes that I want to save you the effort. Save the effort of having all that information in your paper when you could easily cut it down, no problem. In fact, sometimes it's best to say less. Let's check it out. Okay, writers, we are going to look back at a piece of evidence that we saw before. Jacqueline Stenson, an MSNBC contributor. You should remember this from our previous lesson. It was about quotes and source information. And the information there still stands. It's great. We want to make sure that we give the correct source information and give credit to where we got that quote from. I think, though, some of us are getting quote happy. I think there's a place to storytell or paraphrase evidence that'll help our paper flow much better. Instead of having it be transition into quoting, transition out of quoting, transition into quoting, transition out of quoting. That's brutal. I don't want to read that. So storytelling or paraphrasing, which are two different things, can be very helpful. And we'd use them in different situations. Paraphrasing. All we do is we put the author's words into different words, our own, and still give them credit. Let's check out what I mean. So, we're going to paraphrase the example from last time. Instead of Jacqueline Stenson, an MSNBC contributor, blah, 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 and we get to her quote, this is how we could do it differently. And here's how we'd do that. I need to look to see what are the big things. So, I already kind of paraphrased the beginning and said that she argues that if kids are pushed too hard, they burn out. And then I quote the rest. The rest is that they get emotional burnout, they develop issues that plague them for the rest of their life, and some will turn to drugs like steroids or PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs or substances. So, how can I quickly say those things without not giving her credit? And how can I make sure that I didn't plagiarize her by just saying the same thing she did? Well, there's a couple things going on here. If she said not very much, and the part that I want is very small, there's not much of another way to say it, then hey, go for it. Quote it. But I think that we can cut down what was said here in the quote and make it much easier for the reader to digest. So, here's how we do that. We already kind of have the beginning of it. I just might add in, according to Jacqueline Stenson, an MSNBC contributor, she argues that kids who are pushed too hard in sports can burn out, and I'm going to get rid of that sort of intro because it doesn't tell us anything. And I'm just going to say can burn out emotionally, harm, or I'm going to say damage them long term, including using performance enhancing substances that are dangerous. Because why would it matter other than it's cheating if they're using performance-enhancing substances? We're talking about things that kids shouldn't do because it's dangerous for them. So now here's what we have. We have, according to Jacqueline Stenson, an MSNBC contributor, she argues kids who are pushed too hard in sports can burn out emotionally, damage them long-term, including using performance-enhancing substances that are dangerous. Instead of including, I'll say, and even use, and I'll say dangerous performance-enhancing substances to take some words out of it. So I tried to take out as much as I can. Now, up on the screen, you should see the two so we can compare the differences. So on the one hand, you can see, on the one side, we have the original. Jacqueline Stenson, an MSNBC contributor, argues that kids who are pushed too hard in sports can burn out. As she argues, not only are these youngsters at risk for emotional burnout, they may also develop issues that plague them for a lifetime. Some will turn to steroids and other performance-enhancing substances to try to gain an edge. Instead, here's what we've changed that into. According to Jacqueline Stenson, an MSNBC contributor, she argues kids who are pushed too hard in sports can burn out emotionally, it can damage them long-term, and they may even use dangerous performance-enhancing substances. Okay, so here is what my slimmed-down version sounds like when I'm paraphrasing. According to Jacqueline Stenson, an MSNBC contributor, she argues kids who are pushed too hard in sports can burn out emotionally. It damages them long-term, and they may even use dangerous performance-enhancing substances. So, we said some of the big key things, like emotional burnout, dangerous substances to get an edge, lifelong damage to them. That was it. That was what we were really looking for. And we got rid of a bunch of other stuff. And to be honest, we could probably still cut out we could probably cut out a little bit more if we had to. Just, there's not much. It would just be a couple words. And the reason that I want you to understand the value in this is that if you're reading a page or a 2-page paper, probably the 10 words or so that we got rid of adds up. If you have 9 pieces of evidence, like we're supposed to here, and each one is as long as that one, the original, that's going to be a tough hill to climb. I know, I don't want to read that, and I'm sure that you don't even want to write that. So, save yourself some trouble. Choose what quotes are the most powerful when left as a quote, and then take the other ones and pare them down. Put them in your own words. I hope that helps. I hope that makes it so that when you're writing your papers, it's not a quote fest that is turning into a snooze fest. Now, I did talk about storytelling evidence, but here's what I'll say about that. We need very special evidence that we can use in a storytelling way. And when we're trying to make really professional sounding arguments, it can be really challenging to do a good job of that. So we'll save that for a different lesson. This lesson, it's enough to understand paraphrasing is okay. All right, writers. Until I see you next time, happy writing.